The moment, gunman riding a motorbike pulls up outside a busy restaurant and fires 6 shots. The first bullet hit the head of a 9-year-old girl who was eating ice cream with her family. The girl can't be identified because of her age, but the intended targets were a group of men sat at an outside table. They scrambled to get inside, but 3 of them suffered gunshot wounds to the leg, thigh and backbone.
Apparently someone got shot on Turkish too. This is happening in Hackney,
Prostitute here wasn't part of the gang, but carried out surveillance and drove the shooter away from the scene. This is him driving past the restaurant before the attack. But the gunman has not been identified. He's believed to have links to South London. Here he is riding the stolen Ducati Monster on an estate in Nunhead days before the shooting. And this is him making his escape, missing the turn, then mounting the curb to get away. Police are offering a £15,000 reward for information to catch the person who pulled the trigger.
What do you do when a bullet you never saw coming changes your life forever? A 9-year-old girl sitting inside a restaurant, eating ice cream with her family. One bullet came through the wall and lodged in her brain. She survived, but the bullet is still there. Doctors can't remove it safely. She now lives with paralysis down one side of her body. Partial vision loss, cognitive damage. A childhood that looks nothing like it was supposed to. She had nothing to do with what happened outside that restaurant, nothing at all. Now here's what makes this case genuinely hard to process. The man convicted of organizing that attack wasn't some hardened career criminal with decades in the game. He was an IKEA delivery driver, a man who decided at some point that he wanted a more exciting life, and modeled that life on a character from a TV show. He wasn't even the one who pulled the trigger. He planned it, scouted the location, coordinated the team, drove the escape. The actual gunman has never been identified, never arrested, still free. The man who went to prison is the one who made it all possible. This is the story of Javon Riley, and what happens when someone decides real life should look like television. To understand why Riley ended up outside that restaurant on a Wednesday evening, you need to understand the world he'd plugged himself into. 2 organized crime networks, both Turkish origin, both operating out of London, both deeply embedded in the UK's heroin trade. The Tottenham Turks and the Hackney Turks. These are not street gangs in the conventional sense. No postcode tags, no social media beef. This is organized crime, logistics, supply chains, import networks, territory controlled through violence. The kind of operation that moves serious weight and has serious reach. And for the past decade, they had been at war. The 3 men sitting outside the Evan restaurant that night were part of that war. Kenan Aydogdu, 45 years old, previously shot, still operational. Mustafa Kiziltan, 35. Nasser Ali, 44, all 3 affiliated with the Hackney Turks. They were the targets. Riley's connection to the other side of this feud wasn't through membership. He wasn't a Tottenham Turk in the formal sense. He was hired, brought in from outside to do a specific job, with phone records and associations tying him to the network. His explanation in court was straightforward. He was told he'd be paid £30,000 to £40,000. He thought it was a robbery. He claimed he had no idea a gun was involved. The jury didn't accept that. But here's the thing worth holding on to as the story develops. The feud between these 2 networks, the history, the retaliation, the decade of violence. That's their world, their dispute, their choices. The Evan restaurant, 9:19 p.m. Outside, 3 men at a table. Kiziltan, Aydogdu, Ali, the targets. Inside, a family from Kerala, India. A mother, a father, their 9-year-old daughter. Ice cream on the table. An ordinary evening out. A stolen Ducati Monster motorbike pulls up to the restaurant. The gunman raises a weapon and fires 6 shots at close range toward the outdoor table. Aydogdu is hit in the thigh and leg. Kiziltan takes a bullet in the thigh. Ali sustains an arm fracture, nerve damage, and a chest wound. All 3 are rushed to hospital. All 3 require emergency surgery. And then there's the 6th bullet. It doesn't stop outside. It travels through the wall of the restaurant and hits a 9-year-old girl sitting inside. It lodges in her brain. She's taken to Great Ormond Street Hospital, then transferred to Birmingham Children's Hospital. Multiple operations follow over weeks and months. The medical picture that emerges is permanent. Hemiplegia, paralysis down the left side of her body. Hemianopia, she has lost part of her field of vision. Cognitive impairments, fatigue that limits her daily life. Lifelong dependency on care and support. The bullet is still in her brain. Surgeons assessed it and reached the same conclusion every time. Removing it would be more dangerous than leaving it. So it stays. Her mother described a child who was once energetic, adventurous, always moving. A girl who loved everything physical, sport, play, activity. Now she watches from the sidelines. Javon Riley did not fire that gun. The gunman is someone else. And that person has still not been found. But the prosecution's argument was straightforward. Without Riley, that shooting doesn't happen. Not that night. Not like that. He was the operation. In the days leading up to May 29th, Riley was at work. He drove past the Evan restaurant repeatedly, in stolen vehicles, a Nissan Juke, a Mitsubishi Outlander. Different cars, same routes, clocking the layout, watching the patterns. At one point he sat at a bar directly opposite the restaurant, ordered pina coladas, watched. He was confirming that the targets were there, reporting back, building the picture that made the attack possible. Riley coordinated the timing of the attack. He drove the gunman to the scene. He made sure the escape route was clear before the shots were fired. He drove the gunman away, north, out of the area. His explanation throughout was consistent. He thought it was a robbery, 30 to 40,000. The man who actually fired that gun has never been found. And that matters, because a 15,000-pound reward is still sitting unclaimed right now. Riley didn't make it difficult for investigators. Not really. The Metropolitan Police pulled CCTV from the area and found exactly what they were looking for. The same stolen vehicles circling Kingsland High Street in the days before the attack. The reconnaissance pattern visible on camera. A timeline that placed Riley at the scene before, during, and after. Phone records connected him to the Tottenham Turks network. The calls, the timing, the contacts, all of it building a picture of coordination. And then his own behavior after the fact sealed it. Reporting the Range Rover stolen, torching the vehicles, the jail calls about DNA. Every step he took to cover his tracks became a piece of evidence against him. The more carefully he tried to clean up, the more clearly he documented his own involvement. He was arrested shortly after the attack and remanded in custody. He would wait approximately 398 days before the trial began. Despite the full weight of the Metropolitan Police investigation, the person who pulled the trigger that night has never been identified, never arrested. A 15,000-pound reward has been offered by police for information leading to his capture. As of now, it remains unclaimed. Detective Inspector Ben Dalloway, who led the investigation, said Riley's actions had traumatically altered the life of a child who had no involvement in anything. That framing matters, because Riley's defense would rest almost entirely on the argument that he didn't know what he'd actually signed up for. The trial would test that claim directly. The trial opened at the Old Bailey in the summer of 2025. 3 weeks, 4 charges, 3 counts of attempted murder for Kiziltan, Aidogdu, and Ali, and 1 count of causing grievous bodily harm with intent for a 9-year-old girl who never asked to be part of any of this. The prosecution built their case the way you'd expect, each piece individually explainable, together, a pattern that was difficult to argue against. Riley's defense never shifted. He maintained it from arrest through to verdict. He was there for a robbery, 30 to 40,000 pounds. He had no idea a gun was involved. He didn't know anyone was going to be shot. He was a driver, not a conspirator. It's not an impossible defense on its face. People are sometimes used in operations without being told the full picture. But the problem Riley had was the detail sitting underneath his own account. The multi-day reconnaissance, sitting at the bar opposite with pina coladas, confirming targets, coordinating timing, driving the escape, the systematic destruction of evidence afterwards. That level of operational involvement, before, during, and after, is very hard to reconcile with someone who claims they didn't know what the operation was. The prosecution made that argument clearly, and the jury followed it. Character references arrived from the mothers of his children, genuine ones. They spoke to a man who was present in his children's lives, attentive, kind, a different picture from the one the prosecution had presented. Judge Lucraft acknowledged them directly. He didn't dismiss them, but he noted carefully that they may not fully reflect the life Riley had been living outside of those relationships. Two versions of the same man. The jury had to decide which one to weigh. August 18th, 2025. Majority verdict, 10-2. Guilty on all counts. 10 jurors looked at the planning, the coordination, the reconnaissance, the escape, the cleanup, and reached the same conclusion. September 12th, 2025. The Old Bailey. Judge Mark Lucraft, KC, said something that landed hard in that courtroom. Had the 9-year-old girl died from her injuries, this would likely have been a whole life order. No minimum term, no parole consideration, ever. She survived. So the sentencing calculus was different, but only just. The numbers. Notional determinate term, 51 years. Minimum term before any parole consideration, 34 years. Reduced by the 398 days Riley had already served on remand. Effective minimum, approximately 32 years and 332 days. He was 31 years old at the time of the attack. He will be in his mid-60s at the earliest point anyone considers whether he should be released. And even then, it is not guaranteed. The gunman who fired those 6 shots is still free. The man who went to prison is the one who made it possible. She doesn't have a name in this story. Her family have kept it that way, and that's their right. What we know is this. She came to London from Kerala, India, with her family. An ordinary life, a city to grow up in, a future that, on the evening of May 29th, 2024, looked completely open. She now lives with a titanium plate in her skull. A bullet still lodged in her brain, in the same place it has been since that Wednesday night, because the risk of removing it is greater than the risk of leaving it. Her mother's words at sentencing were direct. She described a girl who was once energetic, adventurous, a child who celebrated movement, sport, play, physical activity, all of it. Now she watches from the sidelines. The family relocated within the UK to access the care she needed. The costs of that move alone, £40,000, uprooting everything for hospitals, specialists, therapy. They want to leave the UK entirely. The country they came to has become the place where their daughter was shot in the head while eating ice cream. That association doesn't go away. As of March 2026, the family continues to speak, publicly. Their message has not changed. Justice is not enough. A man received a life sentence, a minimum of 34 years. The courts did what the courts could do, and none of it gives their daughter her life back. None of it removes the bullet. None of it restores what she lost on a Wednesday evening when she had no reason to be afraid. The man who organized it is in prison. The man who fired the gun is not. Javon Riley built a criminal identity around a fictional character. A man from a TV show who operated without consequences, who always walked away. The reality looked nothing like the show. But here's what I keep coming back to. Riley wasn't born into this. He had a job, Children who knew a completely different version of him. He chose this and modeled it on television. So I'll ask you directly, does that make it worse? Does romanticizing a criminal life through fiction make the outcome more tragic? Or was it always going to end somewhere like this? And the harder one, 34. Years for a man who didn't pull the trigger. The actual gunman is still free. Does that feel like justice to you? Or does justice in this case remain unfinished until the shooter is found? The family's answer is already on record. Justice is not enough. Leave your thoughts below. I'm genuinely curious where people land on this one. Subscribe and hit the bell. We cover cases like this every week. Thanks for watching.